hour ago he said he was going to be here.
What did he say?
He said he'd be here. He
Okay.
didn't say he was going to be late or anything.
All right, let's give Steve a minute or two. All right, why don't we get started, and then Steve can join us when he is able to. The first item on the agenda is the abatement request, 59 Highland Avenue. And I appreciate Kerry O'Donnell and Gabriel Gomez for attending this. And we're looking forward to get your input on this. I've read through everything that's been submitted, including the letter from Kerry and Dan O'Donnell to the water commissioners. And based on everything I'm reading, I don't see a basis for an abatement. The letter from Kerry O'Donnell explains that there was a swimming pool installed at the property in addition to an irrigation system, and that the overall issue points to the work being done at your house. You explain you've accepted responsibility for this incident, and you were looking to Paragon Landscape to reimburse you, which they haven't done yet. But from your letter, it does not appear that you've taken any type of legal action against Paragon to recover the money. Lee, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share on this?
Basically, I agree with you because it was not our fault. It was something that happened during a construction process, which is totally out of our control, and it is under the purview of both Ms. O'Donnell and the neighbor if he was available. I mean, we do not have anything in our regulations that covers incidents that happen due to construction projects.
Can I chime in?
Of course.
Okay, I appreciate it, John and Lee and other people I don't know. I appreciate you having us on here. I think, I mean, I understand the letter that Kerry wrote, but I think as some background here, you know, we don't know definitively whether it had to do anything to do at all with Paragon or with the work that was going on at the neighbor's house. I will say that, you know, over 500,000 gallons, if you saw the bill, you reviewed all the stuff as you mentioned at the beginning of the call here. You know, they were outside every day as well. And there was just no, I don't know where the water went. I mean, there was nothing intentional on our part. And you would think that with 500,000 gallons plus of water, that there would be some, I don't know, evidence that, or some showing of like swampiness or something in the yard. And there was just, I just don't know where the water went, honestly. And I know that there's not gonna, you know, there's no fault here. If, you know, you guys are saying that, look, you guys aren't covered if something, you know, happens because the neighbors fixing the pool or if our sprinkler system went on and something went wrong here. But I guess we're just asking that, you know, $11,000 is high for whoever. It doesn't matter who you are, if whether you live in town in Cohasset or whatever. But the reason I asked for the abatement is that we honestly have no idea how this happened. We don't feel we were at fault either. You know, I'll say that I think the O'Donnells are in the same camp as us. We've been very good citizens. We've been here for over 20 years now. We do whatever we can possibly for the town, and we've done everything we can, and we continue to do everything to support the town. And we wouldn't be asking for an abatement if we thought that we were at fault at all, or if we thought that this was an unreasonable high, you know, unreasonable number. But $11,000 is still $11,000. I don't care who you are. And so we're just asking that you would consider. I understand your position from the beginning of the call, John, and Lee, I understand you concur with it, but I think there are some extenuating circumstances here where we really have no idea how this happened. I don't even know if Paragon did it, to be honest with you. I think that's just potentially the way it happened, but I have no idea whether they did it or not. So I ask that you at least consider some kind of abatement if you possibly could, given our track record with the town and given that there was actually zero malfeasance or anything on our part to do with this. So
Okay, Gabe, I have to ask a question.
Sure,
Was your irrigation system replaced?
it was not replaced, no.
All right. So there was nothing wrong with your irrigation system. It was not punctured?
No,
Was it repaired?
it was not, no.
Well,
It-
let me just ask this, if this is possible. It seems from the letter from Ms. O'Donnell that possibly some of your irrigation lines may have gone on to her property and that they may have been punctured. Is that,
It's a theory.
okay?
There's not, I'd like to chime in if I could.
Yeah, of course.
And clarify, the spirit of my letter was as much to inform everybody kind of what had happened from our perspective, and also to show the spirit of cooperation between the Gomez's and us, and, you know, and the fact that we were being neighborly by saying, yeah, it probably is our fault, like, probably. But I think the challenge we have, and this was evident in the meeting with the water department employee, I don't remember his name, the guy who's kind of always running around town. He had a meeting with Gabriel and I and the foreman from Paragon to talk about the water bill. This was back in kind of probably late summer. And at that meeting, we went through kind of that daily log that showed the leaks and everything. And the real challenge is that there's the lack of evidence is that the day that the water stopped, there was like one day where it just stopped flowing at the Gomez's property. Had nothing to do with the timing of my irrigation installation. So we had open pipes for, you know, the winter, and then it got installed in early June, around June 10th was when our irrigation all got tied off. And so the water flow stopped sometime in late May, I believe, May 28th, 29th or something. So Paragon looked at that and said, look, we didn't do anything on the 28th or the 29th to halt a mysterious leak. So they're kind of saying, they're denying that they have responsibility to it. I'm saying I'll take responsibility to it because I'm trying to be a good neighbor and just say it probably is my fault, but like there's no evidence anywhere. There was no flowing pipe. There was no muddy backyard. There was no, you know, there's a suspicion that somewhere on this shared garden that we used to have that there was probably a cross line, but that's really more my working theory more than like the water department or certainly Paragon. Paragon said, no, it was black and white. You were here, they were there. They're really trying to distance themselves from having anything to do with the irrigation system at the Gomez's. But, you know, right now, you know, I'd like to believe it's all, I wish it was very clear. I wish there was like a, you know, a geyser in the backyard that Paragon had punctured. It would be very obvious to all of us that it's their responsibility. But right now, it's a lot of people kind of all doing this. And like I said, with that letter, my intent was to, you know, take anecdotal responsibility and to be a good neighbor. But I am, you know, begging for some support from the water department because $11,000 is an extraordinary amount of money. And, you know.
Can I ask Brenda, I'll say Brenda, what tier is Mr. Gomez on? Is what
He would have 3.
what was he prior to the leak? Was he
Well, in the summer months, he, you know, that being said, he would hit the 3rd tier anyways.
okay?
But his normal usage, say, for that time period, the year before was 13,600 cubic feet. The year before that, 10,800 cubic feet. The year before that, 12,200 cubic feet. And this past August was 72,900 cubic feet.
So Steve, are you suggesting maybe get charged at tier 2 rather than tier 3?
Or tier 1, whatever. I mean, you know, it can't. I mean, we obviously it's a loss of water, loss of revenue for the water department. But you know, it's again, it's my nice side saying, you know, the 2 neighbors working together. You know, something that if they can recalculate the bill at tier 2, you know, and see if that reduces the 11K, because that is a lot of money. I mean, honestly, that is. it,
Crazy.
it is, it, you know, it's a situation where you can't see, you might not be able to see the water where it's going, and again, we're not physically there to look at it, right? So, I think we should, John, what do you think? They have them just have, not now, but have Brenda look at the tier 2 billing, see what it reduces it to.
Yeah,
The
I
tier-
think,
That's a
I
vote. That'd
think
be a
that's
vote, but
reasonable.
the
They,
tier 2 would bring it down to 7639.92 from 10,280, which was the irrigation usage.
okay, will we give a credit to the Mr. Gomez's bill going forward, or would we actually issue a check?
The
I would think
treasurer's office would credit the account.
would credit the account.
Okay, I have a question though. From what everyone has said, this irrigation system went on mysteriously when Mr. Gomez was not in the house at all. He was not living in Cohasset at the time. And then it shut off mysteriously. There was never any leak in the system. There was never any leak in the neighbor's system. And nobody was doing any work at that time on the neighbor's land with any irrigation. So I can't understand how this irrigation system went on.
Well, we winterize it. I mean, we winterize it and we don't turn it back. We winterize it, like, I think it just got winterized a couple weeks ago for the winter, right? And then we effectively turn it on sometime in either late April or beginning of May. And I guess this calendar year of 2021, we turned it on apparently on April 29th, I believe, or sometime around that date. So that's why that obviously we're not going to run the irrigation. We're not going to run the sprinkler system during the winter. So we do winterize it. So that's why it's they got turned on that date. And we were, we weren't physically in the house during that month of April and May, but we do come back, and we're effectively full-time here now. We've been back here full-time since the beginning of June, and we're going to be full-time going forward because there's no reason not to be here now. Our kids were going to school somewhere else. But anyways, I would always come back here at least once or twice during the week and some of the weekends as well. So it wasn't like we were never here during that time frame at all.
Well, did you turn off that system on the date that the water stopped? How did the water stop?
That's, quite honestly, I have no idea. And that's why I was trying to convey, maybe I just wasn't doing a good job, but I have zero idea how this thing suddenly turned off. Like, to be honest, I mean, I know, and I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was like May 21st or 22nd, sometime around there. I think Brenda has the exact date, but I have zero idea, honestly, how that suddenly just turned off, how it suddenly stopped.
Well, it didn't completely stop. It was the continuous leak was from April 30th or April 29th till May 22nd. And then there was normal irrigation.
Yeah, we never turned the sprinkler system off. And I guess what I was trying to say, I have no idea how that leak stopped. We ran the sprinklers, it's on a cycle. So, and there's also a sensor where the sprinklers don't go on. There's a rain sensor by the system where if it's rained a certain amount, the sprinklers will not, they effectively turn the sprinklers, it won't go that cycle that day. But I have no idea why that leak suddenly stopped on May 22nd. If I did, I would tell you.
Was
And
there
this-
possibly any type of electrical
Bridge.
problem in your house? Did we have any surges that could have instigated?
No, and we have a generator, just like, I mean, fortunately, 2 or 3 weeks ago when we had that huge storm, the generator kicked in immediately. And so we never lost power during that time. Unfortunately, we lost Comcast for a week, but which I'd rather have Comcast than power. But anyway, so no, there was not that I know of, there was no power failure or surge failures or anything like that, because the generator, as it proved a couple of weeks ago, kicked in right away. And it is one of those generators that powers everything. It doesn't just power a part of the house or of the electrical part.
Well, you do realize with the generators, if there are instantaneous interruptions in electricity, because we have that problem with our generator too, it will not kick in automatically. So there could have been just a minor interruption that would not kick the generator in and maybe messed up something in that system. I don't know.
Yeah, and once this happened, obviously I had Rainfall Irrigation, which is the company that we use for our sprinkler system. They did, after I got this bill, they did come and inspect and say that nothing was wrong with our sprinkler system.
But it's the mysterious stopping of that flow in May 22nd that is the big question mark on responsibility between, our project, Paragon's willingness to accept responsibility, and Gabriel's normal operation in his yard. And so it's the mysterious stop in combination with the kind of lack of water evidence that makes everybody kind of question like what happened. And,
Okay, so Gabriel and
And
Carrie, I was just gonna ask you if you could let us know what you think of Steve Girardi's suggestion about getting billed at tier 2 as opposed to tier 3.
Look, I mean, I'd be happy with that, and I don't want to speak for my neighbor, because as you've noticed, we've had phenomenal neighbors. The O'Donnells are they're effectively family to us. Our 4 kids, they have 4 kids, etc. So, I mean, they're best friends. So I think, which is the reason she's on the call. Like, she could literally be saying, "Dude, it wasn't my bill. It was my, I have no idea what happened here." So you can see the relationship between us and the O'Donnells. I will speak for myself. I would be very content, very happy if you do suggest what Steve and Mr. Girardi said here. So I know that's not how we started the call. So I understand there's some skeptics on the call, which I fully respect. So to put it bluntly, I would be happy with that.
Yeah, there is responsibility. I mean, it's private. It's your property and nice neighbors. But that water had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And you've had the water department out there. I think that's something that's it's kind of a give and take right there.
Well, one other thing I want to interject in this, I've been talking to people in town, and they have said that area is a big gravel base. So you wouldn't really necessarily see a lot of water puddling because it just drains through.
I'm sure there's a lot of ledge.
Yeah.
Let me just, if I can, I'm going to make a motion that we accept the abatement and approve it only to the extent that we're reducing the charge from the tier 3 charges to tier 2 charges.
Question. What does
Okay.
that translate? What does that translate to in actual dollar amounts? Because I don't know the tier numbers.
Brenda just explained.
Yeah, $2,640.89.
Is what it's reduced by, or that's the
Yes.
total?
That's what it's reduced by.
That's what your abatement would be, $2,640.89.
Any thoughts on that?
No, I'll second that motion, John.
Okay. All in favor?
And I approve of this because this was just the beginning of tier 3. It's not that we had tier 3 in previously. That was our first bill with tier 3. So that was a good suggestion, Steve.
Yes, I agree. Thank you, Carrie and Gabriel.
Thank you.
Going forward,
Thank you, everybody.
Hey folks, just before you go, just always keep an eye on the irrigations. Honestly, you get a lot of leaks out there. So especially from the winter, spring months. Okay.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you, everybody having an open mind. I know we started the call on a different track, and I speak for Carrie, I'm sure I'm very appreciative of you guys at least listening and taking into account some of the facts here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, next item is financials, I believe. Is Don here?
Yes, here's Don.
I am here.
Hi, Don.
Good morning. I'll make this nice and brief so you guys can move on. You have all the October information. Overall revenues are at 30.2%. Most of these line items are in line with our expectation, other than system development, where we've collected that nice big check from CJC. Not really seeing anything in the general expense side. We're 27% overall right now actually spent. We did get that November commitment and we are low. So we're gonna just have to monitor for the next few months as we go into the budget cycle and kind of see where we're at. Again, we know that water is one of those departments that dependent on weather. So, you know, it's unfortunate, but you know, these are the things that we run into. So I don't think it's the sky is falling right now. We'll just have to continue to monitor it month over month, and we'll take a look at what our next quarter brings.
Can I ask you, can I ask you a question, Dawn and Jason? The last meeting, we talked about talking to the school. I know it's kind of looked upon, but you know, during last year's advisory, we talked about, you know, just having a conversation for the budget, you know, kickoff begins. I just want to give that opportunity, you know, just to have the conversation, whether it goes, you know, north or south, you know, where it may be, right? We just want to at least get it in the door frame. So I figured, while we're talking financials, if we can set that up.
Absolutely. I actually I talked to Chris Senior, let him know that at the last meeting you voted to consider this, and that you guys will be considering it as we go through the budget process. I also talked to Susan Owen, who is the school business manager, to kind of put it on her radar. And I just told both parties that, you know, as we move forward month after month with these meetings, that I'll keep them up to date with decisions made by the commission.
Okay.
Yeah, well, one thing I do want to bring up in support of what Steve said, people don't realize that for 10 quarters, we had given the schools and the town a flat rate of $1.27. And this was through the first quarter of 2013, all the way through the second quarter of 2015. And then that's when the schools in the town came back on to tier 1, as everyone else had. So that was kind of a big issue with us. One other thing I have here, how are we going to be handling the refund for the employee benefits from the indirect costs?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well, we paid $1,918.68 in advance for employee retirement benefits, and that person is no longer in existence.
Okay, so are you seeking reimbursement of a fraction of that? And if so,
Yes, considering it's the majority part of the year.
you know, we've talked before. I'm not going to argue about it. So if you vote as a commission, I'll consider it.
Oh, you mean we have to vote because this person who unfortunately
you
passed
have to
away
vote
early in the
to make
year
sure
is
the
no longer
commission's
going to
on
be
board
collecting
out
these
of
employment benefits?
Out of a 200, again, these are direct costs. We don't do it on a monthly basis.
Uh-huh.
What was it? It was 200. I forget the number off the top of my head. Might be a fraction of $2,000. I mean, if you guys want to vote on that to get a refund, sure.
Well, I mean, you said how we are in dire straits here because of whatever, and you know, every little bit helps.
Lee,
We're looking at maybe
Lee,
$1,400.
Yeah, I've never said we're in dire straits. Let's hold on. But hey, if the commission wants to make that motion and vote, I think it's a little ridiculous, but that's my opinion. So if you want to vote to do a refund, go right ahead. And you know, for $1,500 or whatever the number would be, I'm not going to fight you on it. So again, I don't agree with it. As we've gone through since I've been here, you know, indirects are. I'll wait to see what you guys consider, and we'll go from there.
Okay, in your own household, you find it's ridiculous if you paid for something in advance and the service is discontinued to get a refund?
Not the same thing here, Lee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm looking at it from a business perspective because I'm a business person who's been running her own business for 40-something years.
I've heard. I know.
All right, but let me just give my 2 cents. I think indirect costs are an estimate. They always have been. And we should just stick with what we agreed to.
I disagree with that.
I know.
Mhm.
So Steve, your thoughts on this, because Lee and I don't agree on it.
I'm both ways, but again, there's part of it's because the cost of doing business, and I think too should be returned back to the ratepayers and allocated for other uses. So I look at it more as a ratepayer thing.
Let me just make one comment and then I'm done, and whatever you vote on, I'll go with. So again, as John mentioned, estimates, good faith estimates. If our property and casualty payments went up, I wouldn't be coming back to you no matter what the amount is in a given year. That's just how we've done it. We come up with estimates based on solid information. And that's what we agree on in the indirect. So I'm happy to do this. I'll just note that anytime that there's been increases, we have never come back to the Water Commission and said, you need to pay up.
And same thing, Don, if you work twice as long on the water financials as estimated, you don't charge us more, right?
Exactly. If somebody gets a raise mid-year, again, people they've moved steps or they move, education, things could happen. I don't come back and hit you because somebody got a 2% raise. But again, that's where I'll leave it, and I'll be happy to do whatever the commission votes.
So Lee, if you want to make a motion,
I just say
Yes, I make a, all
I
right,
just say
Steve,
one thing, like I agree with everybody here, but I just look more as the money belongs to the ratepayers in the water system. That's my perspectives on it. So
I make a motion that we get the monies refunded for the employee health benefits for the employee who is no longer in the program.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
all opposed? Aye.
2-1.
Okay, so now we're
Okay, wait a
on-
second. There's one other question I have. Don, when should we be working on our FY '22 budget? Or I'm sorry, our FY '23 budget? Do we have a timetable yet for the upcoming budget plan?
I mean, first cuts would be like the normal years, be probably January. So we can start working on it whenever you are ready. Again, I mean, you guys usually run through your budget, so I'd be happy to help out where we can.
Well, no, we depend upon you for the indirect cost, and that's sort of been the hangup for the last couple of years.
Okay. I'll start
So
working
when
on
we
those
have
when I
those-
have some time.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Don.
You are welcome.
Okay, now we're on to 508 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, and I see that we have Attorney Richard Henderson with us. Rich, thanks for joining us. Is anyone else, Rich, joining from your client? You're on mute, Rich. Could you unmute?
Sorry, can you hear me
That's
now?
okay. I can, yes.
Thanks again for welcoming me. No, John Kavanaugh's away, and I don't know that he was notified. I think John and I were both notified. But maybe Brenda knows that. But Peter called me, he didn't, he wasn't available just because he really didn't know what the issue was this morning, other than the broad issue that we talked with at the zoning meeting.
Okay, all right, so I appreciate your response, your email. I received that, Rich, and that was helpful. I think we are looking at this as the Water Commission. We are not the ultimate decision makers on this. It's the Zoning Board of Appeals that will decide this. We're simply an interested third party
I
that
understand.
will give our view of it, and the ZBA can decide whether to consider, how to consider our input, if at all. But because we do have our water resource near that area, this is a concern to us. It's my understanding from everything I've seen, including your response, Rich, is that there are 2 buildings on site, one that was permitted for automobile repair and one that was permitted for storage. The one that was permitted for storage is currently being used for auto repair. You've therefore filed an application for change of use for the storage building to be able to use that for auto repair as well. It seems to me one of the big issues is whether or not it's our view, at least from looking at it, that that building lies within the watershed protection district and also additionally lies in the more restrictive zone A of Lily Pond. And if we're correct about that, the bylaws and state regulations would not allow for a change of use to the storage building to be auto repair. But if you or Cavanero Consulting disagree with us on that, we'd like to hear your thoughts.
Sure. And I'd be happy to look into it. Let me try and explain the background. As I mentioned in my email, I wasn't involved in the permitting. I was only involved in what I discussed with Mr. Hallen was if in fact there were 2 repair bays on the site prior to the improvements, would it be possible? Because when I looked at the zoning decision, I saw the plan incorporated. The plan says storage. I assumed that meant that the work was to be done in the newer, larger building, not in the storage building. But I looked at the history and I found out there'd always been 2 bays there. So I said, since Mr. Capozzoli wanted to use that, at least in some part, would it be possible to have, with no increase in use, just have 2 bays, 1 in each building? And that was the nature of my application. I didn't look into the Zone A issue. I think Jason raised it or I guess you raised it, frankly, in the letter just before the hearing. So if there's a prohibition that exceeds the zoning board's authority, of course I need to know that and I'll look into that. Are you saying that since this building is in an area closer to the water than the previously existing non-conforming building, and it's in an area that the previously non-conforming building was not in, which is a more sensitive area, that they aren't allowed to get zoning relief? I think that's what you're saying.
I am, but I'm saying even if both the buildings were in restricted areas, I don't think there could be a change of use, because I think the storage building is even closer to the water.
That's my point. I thought that was your point.
Right.
So you don't have any issue with his maintaining his current non-conforming use if he stays in the building, which is sited essentially where the old building was. Your concern is change of use to a building that's closer to the brook, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the simple solution from the water department's perspective is use it for storage, move over there and forget the special permit. Is essentially what we're saying, correct?
Correct.
And that's okay. Assume that you're right. And I think Jason brought this up at the hearing, that Zone A. Are you saying that both are in Zone A, Jason, or just the new building?
I believe both are, Rich. So the stream that flows in the culvert in
Right.
front of the building is the resource area too. It's confined there, so it's more
Right.
difficult to be contaminated, but it still could be. But that still constitutes the river, and therefore it's within the Zone A, both buildings.
Okay, but again, your position is that the non-conforming use as it pertained to the original old gas station is fine in your eyes if it stays where it is. Is that correct? It's just.
Yes, yeah.
Okay,
And provided that all the correct containments are in place, Rich, too. Like,
yeah, exactly.
and I'm
yeah.
not saying that they're not, but confirming that they have like 110% storage for spills, containment
Right.
around their chemicals and whatnot.
Okay, and then the other issue is though, and I understand exactly what you're all saying. The one thing that I didn't understand is, and I'm not being argumentative, I'm just curious. When I looked at the background of this, that went back to 1933, it was a Tidal station. It was I forgot all the different brands. It was there were ice houses there. There were there were car repairs, there was a body shop, there's been all kinds of things there. Wouldn't you agree that with all the improvements that Peter made, it's a substantially less impact on the water than what was there before? And isn't the protection of the water the essence of what we're concerned about?
Yeah, the essence of the water is what we're concerned about, Rich. I don't know, the full history that you're explaining and what exactly exists for containment right now, so I cannot really answer your question.
And that's the other piece, Rich, too. And I wasn't trying to be argumentative in the meeting, but I'd like to see an as-built so we can just see
Right,
where
I've
everything's
been
going.
asking, I
So we
asked
can
for
see
the,
where everything's going because we don't know. Like, I can't say I'm okay with this because I don't know what's in place. I don't know
understand.
where the water flows, that type of stuff.
Right, and Jason, I actually asked John Cavanaro, I've asked Peter to call the architect, call a contractor. I don't have those specs. If I had the specs, I'd give them to you right away. I have asked for them, and I'll continue to press for that so that I understand that's important.
Okay, I would also like to see the soil test that they did before they started these projects. Because as you noted, Rich, this has been a highly toxic area over how many decades? And typically, you have to do soil tests before you break ground according to regulations.
Again, I didn't represent the bank. I wasn't involved. I can
I
assure
know,
you, this is a
but I'm
big
just saying,
loan.
these are just things that we're looking for. And we have asked for the as-built. We haven't gotten those. And the trailer was supposed to have been removed from that location.
Right,
a
and
while
that's,
ago.
I mentioned it again, I hate to get into people's personal issues. This has been a difficult transition for him. He spent a lot of money and he's still not using it. Peter's probably the most COVID anxious person I've ever met in my life. He doesn't even work in his new building. He works there and he has one employee who works there and he has one employee in another building, but he doesn't want customers in it. He hasn't even formally opened it. And that's why he's still working on the trailer. As a short term, I tried to get a specific response from him as to when he will abandon that. And he keeps saying when the COVID crisis is ended, but he is willing to take it off the gravel and move it on to the macadam for another short-term period. I don't know how you feel about that.
Rich,
Well, I
one
mean,
note-
this is something that I've heard for a year and a half, Rich,
Okay,
and I
But
have
if he,
seen no
I
action.
understand.
Rich,
No
the other
action.
piece of that too is he definitely needs to talk to John Hallen because John needs a trailer permit for it to
I
still be
understand.
there.
I understand. I will talk to him about that, but he's more than willing to spend the money to move it onto the macadam until he does that. And in the meantime, I will pursue those permits for the collection system.
Okay, and Rich, just so I know where we're going, are you planning to talk to your client about the possibility of just using the bigger
I will,
building?
yes, I will talk to him about this meeting and I will talk to him. I had a conversation yesterday with Mr. Cavanaro and I will relate that and that will be part of that conversation. Yes.
Okay, if you can let us know, because we were asked to put together a list of conditions for the ZBA meeting.
I understand I understand.
So we're just trying to figure out if we need to do that. What the other concern we have, and hopefully we can just talk through this, is the parking of cars behind the storage building that are near the water resource.
There shouldn't, are there still
there
cars there? I think he moved everything out of, I went up there yesterday, it looked like everything was moved from the side. And were there cars behind the storage building as well?
There was at one point, I think they've been moved, Rich, but there's still, I drove by this morning just to check. I think some on the left-hand side now are off the paved surface. I think we'd like to see everything on the paved surface because if everything's designed correctly, then the water will flow to the catch basins and the oil water separators. So all vehicles should be parked on the paved surface or in the storage building.
Okay, and I did talk to him, like it came up at the zoning meeting that the berm wasn't built. It is actually there.
I saw her today. I drove by. It's there.
Yeah,
So-
and the other issue was the berm is there, and there was one other thing. Oh, there was some dialogue about there being construction. The construction, there is no construction on Peter's property at all. There's another building on the other side of the brook where they built a big storage building, but there's been no construction on this site for over 19 months. No construction equipment at all. And he thought that Peter, I think, listened in on that, was confused by that. So, but
I don't
in any
remember
event, yes.
anything about construction, but there was the problem with the dumpster being illegally where it was located. And-
Illegally in what way? Because the other thing, he did mention that to me as well this morning, that they've actually had a contract with a disposal company for over 25 years. Was it, are you saying it's in a place now that it wasn't?
I mean, it's
Okay.
been moved from where it was. Where it had been was behind the storage building. You could see it from the street and was on the embankment of the brook.
Okay, but it's not there now.
Supposed to have been there. No,
I think too,
it was
Rich,
just moved right before the zoning meeting.
Rich, as we
Okay,
discussed too, I think in the meeting is the, and I know it's not the time of year, but once the landscaping gets done, it's going to prevent some of this from happening in the future, because there's
Okay.
some shrubs to be planted along the edge of the pavement that will prevent things from getting off the paved surface to an extent, especially on the side towards the brook, the open brook.
Rich, can I make a recommendation or suggestion?
Certainly.
It seems like we're making good progress and working through a lot of concerns we have, and it seems like you're certainly willing to listen to us and work with us. It may make sense to put the ZBA meeting off so we can continue these discussions and see if we can reach resolution rather than going in on items of disagreement.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Let me talk with Peter about that as well, and let me investigate some of the issues we discussed today, and I'd be happy to continue. I greatly appreciate that, because I'd love to see it resolved in some way that everyone benefits.
Well, my
Okay.
only problem here is if the ZBA meeting is put off again, he is still going to be using 2 lifts in what is considered a storage building, a building that is chock full of petrochemicals and other chemicals that could pose a hazardous waste problem in our pond or going through the stream. He has no permit to have anything he has in that building. And we have not gotten any of the items that we have requested now for quite a while. And if we don't have these items, we cannot make any decisions. We have to see the as-built, we have to see all of this information.
I
And it
understand.
just, I don't have it, he doesn't have it. We can't go on like this.
I understand. What?
I mean,
I-
how do you understand?
understand.
I started in April of 2020 on this, Rich, and I haven't seen really any progress. We
I
still have a
understand.
trailer there. This is, we're talking about the water supply. We're
I-
talking about what could possibly happen to the citizens of Cohasset. This is not, oh, he's just a good guy and we should look at the millions he spent. That will not take care of anything if something does happen to our water
Lee,
supply.
Lee, I certainly am not unmindful of your responsibilities to the community, and I'm certainly not advocating anybody contaminating the water. My feeling is he's probably done something to the better of the community, but that's not the issue. And I'm certainly not advocating because he's a good guy. If I thought for a minute that what he was doing was contaminating the supply, I wouldn't be advocating. I just want to try and resolve it. And I'd like to, I'm new to this. I may be old to it quickly, but I'm new to it now. And I'd like to speak to Peter about some of the things that John mentioned, and maybe if there's room for a way to resolve it. And I understand some of those ways include relocation of that work in that building and getting as-built plans. And I'm happy to talk to him about these things. And if in getting the as-built plans, getting the ability to analyze what actually has been done at the site and the degree of prevention it creates, maybe you could think about down the road, the other building, but let's get the things you want in order. And I'll speak to him about if we're putting this over, the possibility of his having to reopen, the possibility of his having to only work in the other garage if we're going to be kicking this over for a couple of months. And let me talk to him about all of these things. And I'll
Thank you,
get back.
Rich. Okay, thanks. And if you could please keep Jason updated, because Jason is very knowledgeable about all this stuff, and he's going to be communicating to us and giving us his thoughts on it. So if you could do that and work with Jason, that would help us out a lot.
Okay, all right, good. I'll be back to Jason.
Thank you for coming in, Rich. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay. So now we're on to 390 Chief Justice Cushing Highway.
So I talked to the owner. My concerns have been alleviated to an extent. They will be sewering Stop and Shop as well. I still would like to write a letter saying we want to make sure that happens. It wasn't shown on the plan that we received to date because Stop and Shop's engineer is going to be doing the plan for Stop and Shop, not the owner's engineer.
Okay, what about, are they gonna hook in the Cook Estate, you know?
At this point in time, the Cook Estates, I believe, is thinking of going up Sawyer Street to Deer Hill School to connect to sewer.
Okay, separately, and they're gonna pay
Yeah.
for that, I assume?
Yep.
Wow.
Well, that they are going to they're going to be at I don't know if it's gonna be the next sewer commission meeting or the one after that to request extension of sewer. And then they'll start the process of determining the best, most cost-effective way for them to get it to our collection system, Cook Estates.
Okay,
But we're paving Sawyer Street next year, so they need to do something before then.
right.
As well as they're continuing to pump their septic system at Cook Estates on a monthly basis so that there's no flow going to the leaching field. So they want to address it as soon as possible because it's costing them a significant amount of money to pump that system.
I would think so. Okay, anything else on 390?
Okay, now, just a question. The building is totally stopped now, right? The new building?
So what has happened is the DEP has approved that 390 is allowed to connect to Stop and Shop septic system for an interim basis until the sewer line is completed. The town doesn't have jurisdiction over the site at this point. The state does. So that was their determination. And in that, they are allowing partial occupancy of the building. But it is yet to be seen if the town is going to allow partial occupancy of the building or not. I can't speak to that. That's out of my realm, but the DEP is allowing that in their jurisdiction.
Now, does the Stop and Shop septic system have the capacity?
Yes, it does. So there's excess.
Had problems?
They according to all the reports that they provided to DEP, no, they have not had problems. They have a BioClear system there, and they've never had any issues. And it was, don't quote me on this, but I think it was a 7,000 gallon a day system, and it's using 5,000. So there was excess capacity there, and that is why DEP allowed this.
I hate to ask this, but I would say Stop and Shop does not use very much water compared to what the other building is going to use.
They're only going to allow residential at this point in time. They're only allowing a certain number of the residential units to be built out until the sewer main is put in place.
Did they give you the number?
Yes, hold on.
Well, you could text it to us later to save time.
Yeah, it's like say there's 27 units, they've approved 20.
Oh, okay.
That's
you're
just
talking
off.
about
I'm not saying I won't get you those official numbers, but
Yeah,
something to that effect. And nothing on the first floor, only residential on the second floor is going to be allowed to connect. That's per DEP. I'm not saying that's the town's position. I'm saying that's the DEP's position.
Okay, thank you. How about town meeting capital projects warrant articles?
On that one, so as I sent out that email yesterday, so the question came up as this infrastructure bill was passed. One of the modes of them getting that money out in previously has been through the SRF program. So, but the timeline for that program is a long one. So my question to you guys is basically if you apply for it in 23, you start construction in 24. So if we want to apply, though, we need to have approved them at town meeting. So the question is, do we want to put forward FY 24 projects at town meeting, but tell everybody that they won't be done until 24, but we need to get the borrowing approval in place in order to even apply for the funding. So that is the question, is to, do you want to move forward in a tact like that? Dawn's on board with the concept. And as you see, there's a potential for both 0% interest and potentially principal forgiveness in the program once you get into the stimulus. The other benefit of it is, and I didn't realize this until we were meeting up at town hall, is the 2% that actually is effectively a 2.14 or whatever percent is better than we can actually borrow as a town. So even in general, applying for these on a regular basis would probably be a benefit to the department.
I think we should do it.
All right, one other question I have, are there any other grants available coming out? Or
There-
is it only the SRF that we could get money through the infrastructure that was just passed in DC?
There may be, Lee. I'm not saying there won't be other paths, but the way that they've done it in the past, and the reason being is it's a rated system, the SRF.
Mhm.
It gets the politics out of it. Somebody can't just be like, oh, I want to get Cohasset's GAC done in my district. Well, it didn't rank. If you didn't submit it to SRF, they didn't go through the process of saying this is a viable project. It meets a lot of needs for the town and whatnot. There may be other paths to get that money, yes, but like an earmark or something, or even a grant. But SRF is a known quantity. We will investigate other opportunities for sure if they come about. And part of a lot of those grants too is shovel readiness too. So by approving the projects ahead of time, if we hear of a grant coming up, we can start working on the engineering side if we need to get something more shovel ready and ready for a grant accordingly. So there's benefits all around to getting projects approved.
Okay, now we have the GAC for the plant in the SRF program
Yep.
already.
So knock on wood. We'll get awarded December 31st SRF funding for the GAC. Especially now considering we had the elevated PFAS here. We did get that into the state and they've included it in our application. If you read the thing I sent out, they were looking at GAC projects as being 0% projects if they're for PFAS removal. So we may get a 0% loan for that borrowing there.
That's great.
Okay, one other question I have. Does the fact that we're supplying water to Linden Ponds give us a little step up?
Yep. So we include that in the application for the SRF. We put in that we're a regional water supplier. So technically we provide water to Hingham and Hull. So any contamination we have, both of those towns have as well. So it does affect a larger population. And yes, we do include that in the application process.
So Jason, do you need us to vote on this, or do you think to have these go forward?
I'm gonna write up all the things for the next meeting. I don't think we're in a huge rush. And I think Chris is
Okay.
here and he may have a comment on that, but I am going to write up the capital request forms and circulate them for the projects that we're proposing. This is one last question that we need to discuss now, because we're talking about 2024 in that internally, and that is Route 3A water main. I know it's been on the list at 1.2 million, and it's in they're going to pave the road, but it's a 1960s water main, and we haven't had any actual issues with it in repairs wise. So to push it forward just because we're paving, if we have 1900s pipes still in the ground, it might not be the best option. So we're having internal discussions about, is that the best spend of $1.2 million, or is there a better place to spend that money than that process?
Excellent point, Jason.
See, well, I thought that project was also linked to the possibility of a sewer pipe going along the line,
No.
because that was discussed.
I mean, there was talk about regional sewer, but this is that we were talking about putting the water main in strictly because they're going to pave the road. But when we started really talking about it, I said, you know, if we're not having any leaks and any repairs, I know it's an it's an AC pipe is the issue. So it's a asbestos cement, but asbestos cement pipe isn't a hazardous waste until you remove it from the ground, and it doesn't impart anything negative to the water. So it's just whether it has repairs, and we're not seeing any repairs out there. So to spend 1.2 on something that's not a problem versus keeping something that's from 1910 in the ground, we're having internal discussions about, is that the best use of $1.2 million?
Now,
point.
whatever happened to the regional sewer discussions about that?
I think it's still ongoing. But
Yeah.
Chris, again, might be the best person to discuss that, but that's where we're at.
Thanks. Well, Chris, thanks for joining us. It's good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So any comments you have, Chris, while you're here, or just listening in?
Well, just on the what Jason was talking about earlier, I do think this kind of proactive long-term planning is really a good idea. I think that there's a generationally large amount of money that's sloshing through the system. We know the state kind of locked up. They didn't approve their piece, the pre-piece last night in their budget negotiations, but they will. And there's hundreds of millions of dollars in water and sewer money there. And we know at the federal level, there's billions of dollars available. So there's real opportunities, I think, and by being pre-positioned, by having plans, by having analysis, we'll be in that much better place to actually seek and receive funding. So I think that with what Jason was talking about is very concrete, like now, right? We need to stay in that timeline, to stay ahead of the SRF funding. Am I saying that right? Right?
Yeah. So that's the point too, Chris. And I missed that piece. Is every year moving forward, we'd be putting forward a year ahead projects so that we can try and apply for funding every single year. And then even if we don't get funded, we'll know in January and then move forward with summer construction anyways, using borrowing, because we would approve for borrowing anyways at the town level. And it's in the rate study.
And I think that, since the system already has water to hang, and that might increase, depending on how that all works out. If by being what amounts to a regional supplier, I think it makes us even more eligible for funding, which is great. So again, I think this kind of proactivity is really, really helpful. And obviously we want to partner and help in any way we can. So.
Right. Yeah. Much money we can get from state and federal funding would be wonderful. We need it, and it would be a huge help to our system.
And I agree completely. Everything.
So I'll bring the revised projects and timeline to you guys for the next meeting for final approval then, and then submit them finally to capital once that's finally official.
So we'll take the vote in December then, correct?
Yeah.
Then we just hit the ground running with capital budget, then
Yeah.
Upstream. All right.
Yeah, and while we're talking about this, we had talked in the past about doing a presentation to the select board, capital budget, and advisory on the analysis we had done. Was it by Tetra Tech, I think, of our needs, our capital items that we need spending on. And I just wanted to raise that to see where that stands.
I think it's a great idea. It may be hard to get, we could try to do something in December, maybe. I know that advisory has a meeting set for December 8th right now. They usually meet in the evenings. So maybe we can work it around that meeting. They can host it and have the other boards come to that meeting. You can present to that. That might make sense. If that works for you folks.
That does. Jason, could you try to coordinate that with everyone and see if
Yep.
presenters are available?
Yep,
And see if we can get on the agenda.
I can do that.
It's helpful. It shows that we have some substantial financial needs and capital items that we need to address.
And this is the right time to put them on the table to figure out the cost, because there's really opportunities. By being proactive on PFAS, it's put us in a better place, I think, to get funding. And I think if that kind of proactive work will pay, I think potentially pay large dividends with the money becoming available from the federal and state levels.
And that's the other piece, Lee, is we probably, if that PFAS money comes out again as a grant, we'll probably apply for Adams Meadow construction as part of that grant program. If that comes back up again.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, Elms Meadow update.
So I believe we're still taking samples on a monthly basis, Jonathan. And we've been providing the board the results, correct?
Yeah.
So
Yes,
that's the update.
that's correct. So we don't have the November results at this point. Soon.
And how are we trending? Are we trending still above the limit or slightly below?
The limit's 20 and we're running right around 17.
Okay.
Lily Pond, milfoil, algae.
So wait a second,
Sorry.
question. Weren't we supposed to have a presentation about what the mitigation was at the Meadow, the IX?
Oh, we can have a presentation. We present, if you want, I can have that.
I mean, we haven't gotten the information about that I've seen,
I
unless I
sent you,
missed it.
I sent you the final report in the design drawings.
I must have missed it. I didn't see it.
Yeah, so I sent you like the 100% design drawings for the treatment plant upgrades and the report associated with it. I can resend it to you later.
This is for Elms Meadow, not
Yep.
the treatment.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. When did you send it?
I don't know, it was after I submitted for the grant reimbursement. So
Okay,
um,
I'm sorry. I hadn't seen it.
I will resend that to you after the meeting.
Thank you.
Are we all set on Elms Meadow?
Yeah.
Weed removal, algae. So we have a proposal in place right now from, what's the name of this company? New England Aquatic Services. Brenda, can I share my screen? Let me see. I should be able to, yeah, okay. I don't know if you can see this. So the idea is they are going to harvest this portion of the pond for weeds and do it by vacuum extraction. So removing the root balls and everything associated with it. They were originally planning on doing the laydown area up here, but we can't have that. I mean, that would take up the entire parking lot for a year. So we're going to look at doing a laydown area here in the grassed area, another one up in here, a longer, skinnier one here, and then a longer, skinnier one here. So those will be basically the same bags like we have in the lagoon. And if you were probably around the last time they did this, it's a similar process to the last time. There'll be bags filled with the weeds, and they just dewaters over the course of a year and cut the bags open and get rid of the stuff. So the goal would be, if we can approve this, they'll schedule us for March of 2022, which is the prime time to do this. The reason being is it gives the winter to kill down the growth and make the harvesting its most effective because you're creating less volume because you're not harvesting the plant matter as well. You're just harvesting the roots. So I'd like to get you guys to approve that expenditure. It would come out of the $50,000 weed harvesting budget, and we'd give them to notice to go as of March of 2022.
And what was the amount again, Jason?
30,000.
Okay.
So the remaining money would be used to buy the bags for them to pump into.
Okay.
Okay, and this is the same area that we've previously done.
This is a portion of the area that was done previously, but the guy was out there in a boat and he did some probing, and there's still about a foot of sediment in this area currently. So there is weeds in there as well.
Yeah, because this is the area we had vacuumed.
Yeah.
How many years ago was that, Carl? Do you remember?
4 or 5 years. This is a much larger area.
Yeah.
So this is
So
about an
hopefully-
acre.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a test pilot too, to see how it goes and determine its effectiveness. The
It'll
other
be
part of
interesting to see is how effective the last portion was, whether or not, what the density is
Yeah.
of where it was previously vacuumed.
the other piece too is I want to try and work with some of the guys at Woodard and Curran's engineering side. I've reached out to them to talk preliminarily about a full dredging project, and that comes into what's a better spend of $1.2 million, a big dredging project or a water main improvement. I think all of us agreed that dredging the pond and improving water quality coming into the plant would be a huge benefit to us. So that's something that we're looking into as well.
Okay, so for the time being, I make a motion that we approve Jason's proposal for the weed removal at $30,000 with additional monies being spent on the bags.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Elm Street water main replacement. So they have passed the pressure test. The bacteria test came back clean on all but the leg from the island to the Legion Hall. They reflushed and are resampling that section, but they have started the service line installations currently.
Good.
Is there a possible end date?
Hopefully the first week in December at
Mhm.
this point, depending upon how things go.
With the testing?
Yeah. And just like yesterday, we ran into an issue. There was a bunch of fittings on an old iron pipe service and it leaked and they had to end up replacing the whole line because they just couldn't get it to stop leaking on the homeowner side. So hopefully we don't run into any more problems like that. This one happened to be like 10 feet from where we were finishing, so it wasn't a big deal to pull out the whole pipe. But let's hope that we can get through this. And then the sad part is it was under, the service line was literally under a 4-foot diameter tree. So luckily the DPW is going to be taking the tree out this month, so we could destroy the entire root system of the tree to fix the service. So that's the update on Elm Street. Arc flash study. So we got the reports back. I don't think there's any major recommendations, but it has been completed at this point in time. Bear Hill tank lease. We got the first $5,000 deposit. The engineers are back and forth on review comments between our review engineer and the designer. of the installation. They're hoping to pull a building permit the end of the month, end of the week. And they had their LSP out on site confirming there's no contamination where they're planning on going. Sludge Lagoon update. We had a very good meeting. Thanks to Fred. He brought in the worldwide guru from Woodard and Curran on sludge operations to see our facility. He gave us some great ideas, and actually may have a low-cost alternative to help us improve the process we're doing currently. So we're still in the process of looking into if that will work. He has a piece of equipment that has very few run hours on it at a site in Florida that could help remove a significant amount of water from the sludge prior to going in the bag, which would help improve the bag performance as well. So he is doing some analysis. He's working with Jonathan and Carl, getting information on the quality of the sludge in the lagoon and the quality of the sludge coming out of the plant, and that being percent water versus solids. And so we're hoping that we can put something in place in the near future that will help the process immensely and may push off our planned sludge improvement slightly until we determine if it's still needed or not, or if it's part of a bigger project in the future. So that's where we are with sludge as far as capital. And as far as operations, I don't know if you guys want me to speak to this or you guys as far as the new bags. Me or you guys?
Up to you.
So we have
John,
two
I'll let
small
Jonathan.
bags. Yeah, we got 2 smaller bags delivered about a month or 2 ago, and we deployed one of them, filled it up, and this morning we deployed the second one, just started filling into it. We're running out of time before we have to winterize the operation, but I'm optimistic that we'll meet that goal.
So just so you guys understand this, that there's like let's call it the wet lagoon and then the bag lagoon. They need to empty the entire wet lagoon, or to the maximum extent possible, prior to the winter, because they don't process sludge anymore. So then the wet lagoon is used from whenever they stop processing until March, when the freeze stops, to hold all the waste that comes out of the plant. So they need to empty that lagoon as much as possible so that they can, they have the capacity to handle the waste flow from the plant for the next 3 months. And the idea too is we're also going to be working, starting probably in December, working with contractors on developing a bid for the sludge removal, so that we can have it in a bid in place for March to immediately start removing the sludge as of March 1st, let's say, as soon as the freeze thaw cycles are over.
Do we have locations?
We have Bourne still. One of the contractors has another site that he potentially could bring waste to, as well as a different contractor has another site they can bring to. So we're going to basically probably have a base bid that is bring it all to Bourne, and what's the cost to do that, and then have a deduct alternate for what the cost would be to bring it to someplace else if available.
How local are the other sites? Do you have any idea?
One's Synagro is where, in Rhode Island, I think, Connecticut. And do you know what Dan Whitney's is, Carl?
Plainville area, potentially.
Yeah. So neither one of those are vetted officially yet. We won't know until we get the quality of the sludge. And that's why it could be a moving target as we're gonna have to go to bid with the base, which is go to Bourne, because we're not gonna really know what the sludge is gonna be like in March. Because we need to get through that freeze thaw cycle that eliminates a significant amount of the water by turning it to the coffee grinds. And it's kind of funny I'll do that for one of the meetings, is freeze some, and I'll bring you one that's pre-frozen and then one that isn't. It's pretty amazing what happens once it freezes and then thaws out. So I know because I did it in my freezer last year. So,
Bring
so
one
that's
over
the,
to my house, Jason. We'll check it out.
it's you can fix your hydrangeas.
All right, RFP for GAC.
So we reached out, Woodard and Curran, has its forces in treatment assigned to other projects and wouldn't be able to support this given our timeline. So we would be looking at having 3 consultants RFP on this. It would be Tetra Tech, Weston and Sampson, and Ty and Bond. Those are the groups that Fred and I feel are comfortable, that could handle the project. So the idea would be we go out to RFP. We'd have them come in and present to you guys. And you guys could select the vendor to do the final design. If that's the process you guys want to do, that is what we will have for hopefully the next meeting. It'll push us out, hopefully not more than a month. We're estimating the design is going to be a 6-month process. So that'd put us, if we select in December, we'd be in June with the design being complete.
Well, I don't know. I have a question about Ty and Bond after the debacle of the rate study. Are we sure that they have the right people?
Fred's worked with their design team in the past and is, I won't speak to Fred, but
Well, I've done a ton of work with Ty and Bond on capital planning, facility studies, treatment upgrades. So I'm very confident in their design group. I can't speak to their rate guy, but I've had I had a lot of success with Ty and Bond over the years.
Okay, as long as you have our first, whatever. Okay, what about the tours? Whatever happened to that?
so the tours, Tony
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk. So Tony lined up, he finally got talking to people, Lee, getting people on the phone and getting to agree to dates to have a tour isn't a simple process. I mean, if they called me and were like, we want a tour, well, when do you want to have the tour? Who's coming? So they have the 3 facilities. They're trying to get dates from them for all 3 facilities to do the same day. And then they're going to provide them to us to do the tours. That's where we're at. So he said he should have something by the end of the week on dates that work for the 3 different sites to go and visit and discuss the process. But I guess the question is, if we haven't decided on GA, but have we decided on GAC or not? Because I can't go to RFP for a GAC project if we don't know if we're doing GAC. I mean, are we changing?
I think the recommendation, Jason and Fred, is to do GAC, right?
That was the pilot study recommendation, was to do GAC. So I understand you want to see how people are doing with it, but they're using it. Everybody's implementing it. It's not like it's an unproven technology or hard to use. I don't have a problem with setting up the tours, but
well, I was wondering
if the
'cause
tour
it's
is going to
been
be,
months, so it's been taking forever.
well, I gave you the list first, and so just so you know, Calgon is the one that recommended the West Springfield, because they said there's the best example for what we do here in our recommended changeout amount and the water quality, even though it's coming from a well. Calgon, knowing all of the projects they've worked in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, said that West Springfield is the best comparison to the town of Cohasset's situation. You decided that that wasn't a comparative. So we then regrouped and found other alternatives. So we have new alternatives. They are surface water with groundwater supplements. We can go visit them. That's fine.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so are we taking a vote, I think, on the RFP for the GAC? Is that the,
The only one concern I have is timeline. And we just, I gotta make sure that everybody's, the consultants are on board with December, because if we push it to selecting in January or February, we're just not gonna be in line with the SRF process. So that's the other piece of this puzzle.
okay. Well, I make a motion that we move forward with the RFP process for the GAC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And two, I'm gonna work on in the meantime, an ongoing services RFP. And we'll put it on the street on the central register. So everybody can bid on it. And it will be divided up into different disciplines, so we could select different consultants for different disciplines. The reason to do this is twofold. One, we can get through the process and select vendors, but also it helps us internally get projects moving, to have a engineer that we can work with to get funding for projects. So if we don't have to go through the process of selecting the qualified bidder, we would be able to, like for example, the dredging of the pond. I reached out to Woodard and Curran about the dredging of the pond, and they were gonna get their funding team working, but their funding team won't work for free unless they know that in the end, there will be an engineering project for them. So it's kind of a catch-22. So if we have them selected already in a pre-qualification basis, so that RFP will be, again, they'll come in and interview with you guys. And then, so that if we have that opportunity, we can have Woodard and Curran working on something. Because a lot of times the funding people will work for free, again, if they know that they're gonna get a design project out of it. So that's kind of the goal of the ongoing services RFP.
Okay, so let's bring that up at another meeting. So we
Yep.
don't have that here. I think we'll put it on our next agenda.
Yep.
And then any meeting notes for approval, Lee?
You're on mute.
Lee, you're on mute.
Yes, the meeting notes from Brenda, what was the date? Just a second. To approve our last meeting notes of October. What was it?
19th.
19th.
Second. All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Any commission comments?
Yes, I have a question, Jason. What was the result of that interconnect meeting regarding the water quality issue with Hingham?
So we went out and we flushed our side of the line. And they flushed theirs. And I'm not sure if we went back online yet or not, Jonathan. We have not.
No, we took a bacteria sample and it came back clean. But so that was taken on a Thursday. I think we got the results on Monday. I called Hingham to let them know that the result was good. But at the time, their superintendent, Russ Tierney, was on vacation. He was returning to work sometime yesterday. Carl spoke with them this morning. We're working on getting a chlorine analyzer there to be tied to both of our SCADA systems. And that is on order probably a week or two out. And The superintendent Hingham requested that we email them the user manual for the analyzer, and that's pretty much where it stands. So it sounds like, Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll hopefully be on by the end of next week.
Russ Tanny is meeting with his people tomorrow, and he said he would have an answer after that meeting.
But I thought when we met on site, they said they didn't need the chlorine analyzer in place prior to returning on. They changed their mind.
No, technically no, but there was a response from DEP to Hingham that raised a few questions.
Okay.
How long have we been offline?
About 3
2
weeks.
weeks? 3 weeks? How is that going to affect our true up?
We'll be behind, more likely than not.
We'll be considerably behind.
So, yeah, we'll just have to catch up.
Hmm. Why weren't we notified about this?
Why
No,
wasn't, who wasn't notified?
I mean, we haven't been in the loop about this at all. The commissioners.
Ah,
Did you know about it, John?
I did not know.
No. Was there any reason?
no, you know, if I was remiss, I certainly apologize for that.
What was the last information you received? What step of the process were you at?
I just heard through the grapevine that there was a problem. That's all. I didn't hear anything official. It was just someone I was talking to, and Hingham said, "Hey, did you know?" And it's like, gee, no, I didn't. And we have not been given any information about this. I thought maybe Jason would have been able to keep us updated on what's happening.
That's an operational thing, Lee. So
Yeah.
Oh,
if
I'm
you have a
sorry.
problem with that, that's on Carl and Fred and Jonathan. That's not on me.
Okay,
So
you
if
did
you don't
not go
feel
to
you got
any
notified,
meetings on
that's-
this or
that's-
anything?
That's not on me.
Okay, but you did not attend the meetings. You were.
I
you
did
were
go to
told-
the meeting. I did go to
Okay,
the meeting.
let's, all right.
Okay,
I
that's all
think
right.
this is an operational matter that the operators
That's
felt
all right.
under control. They need to bring the board in. I'm
It
just
might
for
be
comfortable
clear-
just a
can I-
communication problem with everybody saying, well, I thought they did it.
Just a clarification
All right.
for us.
Okay, Fred, go ahead.
With Jason at the plant, would you prefer we inform him and you at the same time? Or do we inform Jason and he goes to you?
Easy.
Probably
You
inform
can
all of us at
inform
the
both
same
of them at the
time.
same time if you'd like.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess more information is fine, but
No
you know, I
Yes,
problem.
think
more
generally with
information is better than less.
operational matters, you
Yeah.
guys are handling them if there's no issue.
We assumed that he was communicating to you. We did not know that, or we would have
Fred, I wasn't even informed when you shut down. So
Right.
let's call a spade a spade.
No, it
I
is
went to
what-
that meeting, but I'm not gonna get into it.
No,
That's-
we all-
So
We'll
I
just
think,
communicate to
um,
both of you from now
what
on.
we should be doing is possibly
Okay.
maybe getting
Just
some
go forward.
procedures for reports to the commission, maybe on a bi-weekly basis. You know, updates on different programs that are going on, instead of waiting for a monthly meeting. Because things happen in the span of at least 4 weeks.
So why don't we just do this? Fred, if you're informing Jason about something that you think should come to the attention of the commissioners, please just copy us.
You got it.
All right.
And it's
Thanks,
all,
everyone.
we're good.
Appreciate everyone, great work you guys are all doing.
Yes.
Chris, I appreciate you attending our meeting and participating. And we will get an email out and schedule our next meeting.
Okay, and then should we be getting together about 508? What about the ZBA meeting?
I'm gonna
I
ask for
think, Jason,
continuance
can you follow
because
up with Rich to see what his plans are, if we need to do that list? of
I think-
conditions?
I think we're gonna need a continuance if I don't get an as-built before, I mean,
Right.
I need a week before the 7 days. So if their meeting
Right.
is the beginning of December, I mean, I'm not gonna get an as-built by, and with enough time to review it and comment 7 days ahead of the meeting.
I
I just
agree.
don't. So I think it's going to have to be continued.
I agree.
But should we put conditions on the continuation that they stop using that facility for what they're using it for? The storage bay, using it as their full service station, repair garage, because I saw cars up on lifts again today. I don't think they have a permit to do it. We never got that information. Do they have a permit? When did they get the permit? Who issued the permit? Where are the answers to those questions? Who do
We
who
did
do you
get,
go
they
to?
never got a permit to use that building. So they're, if they're doing it, they're operating that building without a permit, and that falls within the building department, I believe, or zoning board of appeals. I think we can simply say in our continuance, we believe they've never received a permit and should not be using that building without a permit for auto repair.
See, I'm just concerned that what if something happens? Whose liability is it? Does it fall back on us because we didn't pursue? When we knew something was going on that was illegal?
I don't think so.
I don't know. And
Yeah.
you know, in today's world, anybody can sue anybody.
All right, so Jason, will you do that continuance and just make that note that it's our understanding there's never been a permit and they should not be operating that storage facility as an auto repair?
Will do.
All right, thanks, Jason. You're also gonna try to see if we can get on the advisory December 8th meeting?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everyone.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
everybody.
Okay,
Two.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, we didn't make a motion to adjourn.
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good catch, Lee.
Aye.